Dear fans and viewers in front of the screen, good evening to you all. Welcome to the Chinese Building Association of New South Wales Building and Development Seminar. I am Andy and I'm honored to be your host for today's online event. Firstly, I would like to thank City Media Australia for providing us the platform for live streaming this episode of Building and Development Seminar, and also welcome viewers from City Media Australia. Chinese Building Association of New South Wales was established in January 2020. The association is dedicated to empower members, empower the construction industry, and empower the local community. The association aims to create a professional platform for communications to help members grow their business and to help the industry become better. As the only industry body that serves the building and development industry, we have gained 310 member businesses, including developers, builders, contractors, suppliers, and other professionals, and 16,000 followers across all platforms. CBA New South Wales hosts a series of member events, including business events such as Industry Conference, Building and Development Seminar, Career Expo, and the Industry Summit. We also host regular social events such as sport and barbecue parties that creates wonderful opportunities for our members to socially interact with each other. We aim to provide latest information about the building and developing industry. If you're interested in our events and contents, please scan the QR code on the screen to add our WeChat assistant for more information. Next, I would like to thank the sponsors for today's event. Energy Trade is an Australian-owned and operated company that specializes in energy management. Their services vary from energy procurement and management to energy generation and energy efficient technologies for residential, commercial, and industrial projects. Thank you very much, Energy Trade, for supporting our event today. Deluxe Building Management has been providing well-organized, efficient, and experienced building management services over 25 years. They are the industry leader in building and facilities management, which they have achieved through providing first-class service facility solutions to over 50 luxury high-rise buildings in both New South Wales and Queensland. Thank you very much, Deluxe Building Management, for supporting our event today. EY United is a brand with over 10 years of construction experience. EY United specializes in high-end commercial and residential construction in Sydney. Thank you very much, EY United, for supporting our event today. Also, on behalf of our association, I would like to thank all of our annual sponsors. Without your support and trust, the association would not be what it is today. If you want to support our building and development seminar, you can do so by sponsoring our event. If you would like to sponsor one of our events, please contact our assistant for more information. The topic for today's event is major project updates with City of Ryde Council. And we have invited a super special guest, the Mayor of City of Ryde, Mayor Jerome Laxell. Before I start, I would like to congratulate Mayor Jerome Laxell, who has been re-elected as City of Ryde Mayor once again. The City of Ryde is located in Sydney's northwestern suburbs, 12 kilometers from the Sydney CBD. Today, the City of Ryde local government area covers an area of approximately 40 square kilometers, including 16 suburbs, 2 major rivers, 200 hectares of natural areas, 207 parks and open spaces, a leading university, 2 TAFE colleges, and 29 schools, with a total of over 58,000 students. The City of Ryde is currently home to 125,000 residents in over 43,000 households. The population is ethnically diverse, with 47% of residents speaking at least one of the 72 languages other than English, and over 40% of residents born overseas. In today's section, you will hear from Mayor Jerome Laxell talking about the City of Ryde Council and the major projects within the area. He will also give us some updates on the Eastwood Town Centre planning. This is also a wonderful opportunity for our viewers to directly communicate with the Mayor of Ryde. If you have any questions, please leave them in the chat room or add our WeChat assistant and send the questions directly to him. Our assistant will be collecting them and the questions will be addressed in the Q&A section at the end. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Next, I will hand the screen to our guest today. Let's welcome Mayor Jerome Laxell.
Hi there, thank you very much for that kind introduction. Yes, we have just had an election and I've been re-elected, which is fantastic. But I'd love to thank the Chinese Building Association, Carson and his team for putting on this wonderful event. It's so important that representatives in the city of Ryde get to engage with the local Chinese Australian community. We have near 25% of our entire community identify as Chinese Australian, and I take up every opportunity I can to ensure that you have a voice and that I can communicate directly with you. So when Carson messaged me and suggested today's little event, I was very happy to join and just squeeze it in just before Christmas. So thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land. I'm here in the city of Ryde, obviously, which is Wallamadigal land. And I'd like to pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a little presentation here, which I'll show and I'll go through and talk about sort of what's happening in the city of Ryde. If you just give me 1 second, I will start sharing it. I'll present that there, and then we'll share the screen, and away we go. Now, just making sure that's all clean. I think that's all good. Yep, we're on the screen. Yep, excellent, fantastic. So yeah, just providing a little City of Ryde update, major projects, some of the planning changes that's happened this term. A little introduction about who I am, what local infrastructure we've been upgrading. I'll do a bit of a chat about the City of Ryde housing strategy. I know that's something really important to me, particularly the provision of affordable housing. Talk about our local environment plan, the West Ryde Master Plan, and the Eastwood Master Plan. So who am I? I've been a councillor on the City of Ryde since 2012. I was first elected at the age of 27 and became mayor at 31, the youngest ever mayor in the City of Ryde. I've got 3 young kids. They go to school locally. I've had a small business background my entire life, very similar to some of you, no doubt. Working in a family business, seeing how hard my parents worked, and they've instilled a very strong work ethic in me, and that's that same work ethic that I bring to my role as a councillor. I've been mayor for 5 years now. I had a 1-year stint in 2015, 2016, and I've been mayor for the last 4 years, and hopefully we'll be mayor again next year when council resumes to vote. We'll see how that goes. I'm also the Treasurer of Local Government New South Wales, which is the peak body of all local governments in New South Wales. I was re-elected as Treasurer of Local Government New South Wales last month. Sorry, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. Yeah, end of November. And so on that board, we meet as a board every couple of months, and we advocate to the state government for good results for local governments across New South Wales. It's an awesome place to work, and I'm very thankful to be re-elected there. I've got private sector experience as well. I work in workers' compensation insurance and a procurement company. And yeah, in my time on council, I've really taken that professional, accessible approach, which I learned not only working for my dad in the small business, but also in the private sector, and brought them to public life. I treat my role as a councillor and mayor as a job. I'm very accessible. At the end of the slideshow, I'll put up my WeChat QR codes that you can scan, and you can send me a message directly. That's how I try and do my job as a councillor and as mayor. And in my time on council, I've been really proud of a couple of things that we've done. We were the first council, as far as I'm aware, the only council to give direct small business support to businesses in Eastwood during the pandemic. Now, this was before JobKeeper, before JobSaver, before all the state and federal government support. We were able to provide small businesses in Eastwood with a cash grant to stay open. We've done that whilst also maintaining stable finances at the City of Ryde. With that, we've been able to do huge upgrades to infrastructure across our city, which I'll go into in a sec. A key, as I mentioned at the top, a key policy thing that I pushed was the affordable housing policy in the City of Ryde. And we've led reforms to duplex subdivisions in Ryde, which is making it easier for landowners and residents to build duplexes on their land, and I'll go into that in future as well. We're also doing a huge reinvigoration and revitalisation of our town centres, starting with West Ryde and then moving into Eastwood, which I'll touch on. My vision for Ryde is I want it to be a city that's affordable to live in for families, that's accessible for all the workers that live here and work here, and that's a city that's a fun place to live. And to do that, we need vibrant town centres, we need support for small businesses, but we also need that local infrastructure, the parks and playgrounds that your customers look for when they look for a house. You know, when someone goes to buy a house, they look at the local park around the corner, or they look at the footpaths, and they look at the shops around the corner. Are the shops around the corner really vibrant? Are they, you know, does it have a lovely cafe? Is it a good supermarket? Is it a clean place to live? That's what people love about Ryde, and that's something that I love about Ryde too. And that's trying to make the place more livable, a place that people want to move to, a place that, you know, young people want to stay in if they grow up here, that they can stay in. And to do that, yeah, we need all that Ryde infrastructure. So we had a little brief on what Ryde was, but I thought I'd give you a little bit more information here. About 133,000 residents in the city of Ryde. By 2036, that's set to jump to about 160 or 170,000. 19,000 children, which is pretty high, 15,000 young people, 43,000 households, mainly families, 50%, and couples. So like 75% sort of couples in households. And that's why we're seeing huge pressure on our parks and open space, young families with active kids. We've got great schools here in Ryde, you know, the university, the TAFE. People move here to access those services, and we need to make sure as a council that we can provide, you know, the ancillary services so that people who do live here enjoy living here. As we've heard, very culturally diverse. I can tell you, as a son of immigrants, my parents both moved to Australia in the 1980s. My first language was French. It wasn't English. And their story was one of sacrifice. They left a very comfortable country at home, moved to Australia with basically, you know, my dad went straight to work. He was 13 or 14, went straight to work. You know, the family downsized from a big home back home to a smaller home here in Australia. They sacrificed a lot to come here. And that's a very, very similar story that I hear, not only in the Chinese community, you know, but in the Korean community, the Armenian community here in Ryde. We're very diverse, 101 countries of origin, 72 languages spoken, almost 50% of residents were born overseas. But we're a very successful and harmonious community as well. You know, our median income is near $100,000. Property prices, as I'm sure you're aware, skyrocketed through the roof. And that's because we've got this powerhouse economy on our doorstep. Macquarie Park, $17 billion in gross turnover, which provides our community with well-paid jobs locally. That's on top of these town centre jobs that are provided at West Ryde and Eastwood. You know, Ryde's really unique in that it has this suburban look and feel, but also these big town centres and areas that provide local jobs and provide housing for young and old, and hopefully those who can afford very big homes, but also those who can't. And that's a passion of mine. A whole heap of stats here. I won't go through all of them, but we're going to provide these slides to you at the end, and hopefully Carson can send them around. Just into some things that might interest you. $1.6 billion of approved development over the last 12 months. We expect that to grow over the next 2 to 3 years. Macquarie Park will be a big engine room, but on the back of some of our reform down at West Ryde and potentially Eastwood, where we'll see more growth in Ryde in that respect. Average DA approval is down to 84 days, which isn't the best, but it's not the worst. Always something that I keep an eye on. But some of the other things that we've done, and I'll go through big upgrades to local town centres, millions of dollars upgrading areas around small business, not only through direct support, but also through the public amenity around the shops, making sure that there's outdoor dining areas, making sure that there's markets at Eastwood and at Meadowbank, so that people come to the town centre and spend their money. These are really things that we focus on, and we try and activate these areas so that people have something to do when they live here, and so that if you are building a duplex near a town centre or a block of apartments at Eastwood Town Centre, that when people come to look at this stuff, they see that the town centre is vibrant, it's active, it's got a library, it's got great open space, it's got a brand new playground, it's got access to public transport, all these things, electric vehicle chargers we're starting to install. All these things are really important for livability and something that I'm really passionate about. We've also got a heart. We help our local people. We've got an environmental heart. We've reduced our emissions. We've gone to net zero. We've reduced our electricity use. We're buying 100% renewable energy. We're recycling all our construction material, all the stuff that a good corporate, a good government should do, we're doing. So I'll just go through some of the key infrastructure upgrades that we've focused on in this term of council. The first one is Ryde Central. Now that, for those who don't know, is at Top Ryde, where the old council chambers were. We've replaced a building that was done in the 1960s. We're going to build this amazing community facility. And the Chinese community in particular, we've been struggling to house community groups, dancers, singers, even just small meeting rooms in our public facilities just haven't been good enough. We just don't have enough space. A big part of this construction is increasing that community space by 4 times as much space. So this is a $110 million construction project with Taylor's Construction. The existing building's being demolished. We're about to start construction on this facility. Does this work? This building here on the left is a 700-seat auditorium and performance hall with an art gallery, a function space, full kitchen. So businesses in Macquarie Park, but locals can also use this wonderful facility to form community with each other. This building here is a commercial building for council staff, which will save the council millions of dollars a year in rent, which we're currently paying. It also have some commercial space there. As I said, this will be 100% owned by council. It's within our council operating budget. Oops, going the wrong way. And the main thing it'll do is it'll provide a community hub for those who do move in Ryde, be they at Eastwood, Top Ryde, Meadowbank, provide them with a space to celebrate the arts, be it through performances or the art gallery, but also to meet with other members of the community. There'll be as I said, scores of meeting rooms and facilities for everybody to use. So that's the view from Lane Cove Road. That's the City of Ryde building there, and also that's the performance hall, which takes up that spot. And then this is sort of the public space into that big 700-seat auditorium. This has been on council's agenda for over 15 years with no real progress, millions of dollars wasted. I really wanted to achieve certainty on this site during this term, which we've just finished, and we were able to do that. We'll retain 100% ownership of the site, and it'll be completely funded without raising rates or reducing services. It'll have a located public plaza, landscaping works, pedestrian links, 236 car parks underground, and it'll provide, a hub for services for our entire community. Anyone that knows Eastwood knows that parking is an absolute nightmare. And what we've decided to do, again, I don't know why this wasn't done before my time. As I said, I've only been mayor since 2017. I can't explain why this wasn't done before. It makes no sense. But anyway, we did it. The Eastwood car park on Rose Street is just about finished. Opposite the Aldi there on Rose Street East, increasing car parking from 49 spots to 146 spaces. It'll have a lift, accessible spaces. It'll have number plate recognition. It'll have EV charging stations. It'll be 2 hours free parking. And what it'll do is it'll not only benefit both sides of Eastwood. This is on the eastern side, which some of you may know as the Korean side of Eastwood. It was the quickest and easiest one we could build, and I'll show you the plan for the western side at the end of my presentation. But what this does is a lot of the traffic and congestion caused in Eastwood is caused by people who want to visit the Korean side, but there's such a lack of parking there that they actually drive to the western side and drive around all the streets and clog up the streets in there and take up the parking over there. With this, with tripling the amount of car parks here on the eastern side, that'll fix that problem, or at least make it better. So this $7.3 million car park is weeks away from opening, and will provide an amazing facility, not only for businesses in Rose Street East, but also for businesses on the other side as well. So very excited to open that in the new year. I spoke about young families before. I spoke about, 50% of people in Ryde have young kids. Young kids usually play a lot of sport. So what we've done is we've really upgraded our local parks and playgrounds for organised sport. So we've installed synthetic fields so that we can increase the amount of usage. We're spending millions of dollars in upgrading our amenities around there, particularly for female sports. I know my girls play soccer. The registrations in female sport is going through the roof. So to have a happy population that lives here, we need to make sure that we provide these basic services. This is a $4 million project. It's under construction now, and it'll have unisex toilets, and it'll complement the 2 synthetic fields that we've got there at Christie Park. So that's an exciting project, and that's sort of another view there. Parks and playgrounds. Someone said to me the other day, Jerome, if one thing you'll be remembered for, it's being the mayor for playgrounds. And I said, I'm pretty happy about that. One thing I know that our community love, we've got all these amazing public schools around the place. We've got so many young kids in the area and growing. Lots of people living in apartments. I think over 50% of our population live in apartments. They need a place to play. They need a place to get out. And our parks and playground upgrades are the envy of Sydney. That's the feedback we're getting. Huge upgrades already, and some highlighted here. Blenheim Park, we acquired 3 bits of private land down there to make the park bigger. Here's some screenshots of the master plan. When we make these places multi-use for young and old, you've got little playgrounds here, you've got skate park up here, you've got multi-use courts there. You've got this one's got a radio control car club, which is pretty unique. This Blenheim Park is opposite Macquarie Park, Country Garden and Lauchlan's Line up there. So a huge need for more open space there. And that's something that I'm very proud to deliver on behalf of the community. There's a fenced dog off leash area for people who have dogs. There's, active and passive recreation, really important livability things. And to be honest, something that, if you're selling a house nearby, or if you're selling a duplex, or if you're selling an apartment, you'll know that, people look for these facilities. And that's why we're building them, to ensure that, people really want to live here. This is another great playground that's opening up. It's under construction now. It's like a $1.5 million playground down at Meadowback Park. Just massive, new amenities block as well. Water play, stuff that people can really sort of sink their teeth into. Denniston East had a big park upgrade. You get the gist. I don't need to go through each of these. This park here was $2.2 million. There's the upgrade plans there. And the whole point of this is, as I've said many times, it's to provide a reason for people to come and move into Ryde. You don't want to move into an area that has these facilities that they're not up to scratch. We find that there's such strong demand to live near these areas because of these facilities that we're building. And that's really great for our city. I'd like to talk about, hang on, what are we doing here? Hang on, going through a little bit. I'd like to talk about the housing strategy before I get into, I'll go back, sorry. A big part of, so I just mixed up my notes there. A big part of our, I've done the parks and playgrounds and some of that infrastructure. I touched on Eastwood being a really vibrant place. A big part of making town centres, a place for people to visit is upgrading the local area as well. So Ryde Road Town Centre in West Ryde, part of the West Ryde Master Plan. We're doing I think it's a $5 million upgrade down there. That's got, we've undergrounded the power lines, we've widened the footpaths, we've installed landscaping, provided outdoor seating. I think there's public Wi-Fi down there. We've put outdoor dining. This is to make it an attractive place for people to, there's apartments that'll go up here. There's apartments just near Anzac Park, which has also recently been upgraded, just providing that vibrancy for people to live close by. And there's another shop there. Same at Cox's Road, which is in North Ryde. It's very tired town centre there. We're doing a lot of landscaping. Again, an open space there in front of the library and the community centre. All to make those areas more livable. The next sort of upgrades will be Top Ryde in Church Street, which is starting next financial year, and also Eastwood as part of the master plan process. I want to talk about the housing strategy, which may be of interest to you. So in December 2020, the City of Ryde Council adopted the local housing strategy. What this does is it provides a long-term basis for housing delivery to meet the future needs of our community. So the state government set us housing targets, and what this strategy does is it provides a transparent and open document to let the community know, in consultation with them, how we're going to achieve those targets. We don't have control over those targets. The state government just say, this is how many houses you need to provide. So by 2036, which sounds like a long way away, but it's really not, it's only 15 years away, the City of Ryde needs to provide an extra 20,000 to 22,000 dwellings in that time, and that's with an extra 8,500 to 8,900 by no later than 2031. So what, using those targets in mind, what council did was that it had the strategy to develop housing delivery options, to consider how we're going to fit that in and where we're going to do it. And here's how we've planned to do that. So yeah, this is a bit more on the strategy. So we have to adopt these housing targets. Our focus has been to focus growth in the town centres. And when people talk about why they love living in Ryde, and this is why I moved to Ryde, I moved into an area of medium density, a terrace or a townhouse. When I first moved into Ryde, got married, moved here. Then when I had kids, I moved to a house. And when the kids grow up, hopefully move into, downsize and move into an apartment. All those three types of housing are in this city. And as a council, what we've tried to do strategically is provide levels of housing from entry to retirement. And that's something that we're really keen on doing, still keeping those single dwellings in the centre, suburbs like Denniston East, Marsfield, areas of Putney and Gladesville, keeping that single dwelling, increasing density around your town centres. So our focus on growth is in town centres. We're going to do master planning and developing a program to manage growth. We also need to increase the supply of medium density dwellings in targeted areas. The state government have made that very clear that that's something that council needs to do. So that's something that we'll be exploring as part of the town centre process. The housing strategy also seeks to provide the infrastructure delivery with that housing growth. And, we'll talk about that in that document. Refine the planning controls to meet that growth. So rezonings from perhaps R2 to R3, increasing height and density in certain town centres, ensuring that, and I'll go through this with West Ryde, a lot of the community that live there were rather frustrated that redevelopment wasn't occurring. So making sure that the planning controls are right to encourage that revitalisation, but also improve housing design. So preserving local character is important, particularly in those low density areas, but ensuring the stuff that is built is of high design excellence and is environmentally sensitive. You know, as I said, we're a pretty left of centre council. We have a pretty environmental heart, so we want to make sure that, you know, people are building stuff that isn't going to impact our rivers, isn't going to impact our community too much, and hopefully you know, reduces emissions and energy use. We've also, the housing strategy also seeks to mandate affordable housing. We've had mitigate impacts of some of the SEPs, which I'll go into, and we're also investigating areas for long-term growth. The first place we've decided to look at is West Ryde. So one of the biggest reforms that we did, particularly in the low density areas, and this is something that I've been, ever since I was first elected in the city of Ryde, my friends who've been growing up here their entire life, you know, they grew up in a single dwelling house, and their parents are, you know, they've moved out, and they found it really hard to obviously buy a single dwelling house, but they could afford and can afford duplexes. Up until very recently, it was quite difficult to build a duplex in the city of Ryde. The old system had a lot size frontage of 20 metres, and that was only about 4,000 blocks in the city of Ryde were eligible for duplexes. Now, if you think of that, you know, maybe only 25% of those were ever developed. So less than 1,000 duplex blocks in the city of Ryde. People have overwhelmingly told us, young and old, you know, first home owners, people who want to downsize, that duplexes are their preferred housing option. They prefer duplexes to other forms of medium density, particularly in those quiet areas, like, as I said, Marsfield and Eastwood, not in the town centres. Outside of the town centres, duplex is our community's best housing choice. Preferred housing choice, sorry. So what I was able to do with a number of other councillors was drastically reduce the lot frontage size down to 15 metres. And what that did was open up the available lots to 11,000 lots are now eligible for duplexes in the city of Ryde. That'll hopefully provide more duplexes and more lots for people to be able to develop into duplexes to downsize. You know, the parents live on one side, the kids live on the other, or the parents, you know, live on one side and you rent out the other to provide an income. What it also does is it provides a reasonable path to achieving those housing targets that we have to, in a format that our community really accept. This dual occupancy reform was widely exhibited in 2020. And we got approval in March 2021. And yeah, 59% of respondents supported this proposal, but a majority of those people saying that they wanted to make building duplexes even easier than what was proposed. They also told us very clearly that they didn't want the full impacts of the medium density housing codes. So that is manor houses and terraces. Our community didn't want that in our R2 zones. But they were happy to accept that in the R3 and R4 zones, obviously. As a instruction from the state government, they were happy to accept our balance. So our balance was, we'll take out manor houses and terraces, but we will support increased amount of duplexes from 4,000 lots to 11,000 lots. And the state government said, that's fine, but you need to do more work and find more R3 zones in Ryde. There aren't many R3 zones in Ryde. It's mainly all R2 and R4, and there's a little bit, like a very small amount of R1. But R3 residential zoning is something that we have to work on, and I'll get to that in the next 2 to 5 years. So the middle suburbs in Ryde will remain, as per this housing strategy, will remain single dwellings and duplexes. Those quiet areas, those cul-de-sacs, with the focus of our growth, the focus of this 20,000 to 22,000 homes by 2036 will be either through high density in our major town centres, or medium density in the R3 zones surrounding the town centres. Macquarie Park is huge. There's a Macquarie Park Place strategy, which was on exhibition from July to August this year. That's led by the state government. The draft plan, which they've exhibited, and I think there's been community consultation. They've got a 20-year plan, which they want to introduce 20,000 jobs, an extra 7,600 new homes. They want a nighttime economy, basically the same stuff that we want. However, they've taken control over this area here, known as Macquarie Park. I'm sure you're all very well aware of it. You can see the high rise under construction there, close to the metro. One of the things that we're most concerned about in this area is, I guess, the lack of public infrastructure that has been delivered in the past. We're hopeful that the state government have learned from their mistakes and can hopefully condition a lot of their approvals to ensure that open space is being delivered, that those local road upgrades are being delivered, so that it doesn't put too much pressure on existing open space down there. This place strategy that the state government are putting out doesn't rezone the land. What it does, it'll guide the private landowners on what they need to do to ensure they get approval. So it's just like a guide, but we're told it'll have strength, it'll have a bit of teeth to it. So if you do own land there that's been identified as a high growth area, you'll still individually need to lodge your planning proposal and go through those steps down there. Same with the City of Ryde housing strategy and some of our master plans. It's landowner led. The master plans and this Macquarie Park Place strategy provides you the guidelines for what you're going to work to, what you can work to. So that's Macquarie Park. And this is sort of the first big master plan we've done under those strategies. So we had the housing strategy, which was on the back of the local strategic planning statement, a whole heap of documents, but we're finally getting to some solutions down here. And we started with West Ryde. You recall I said earlier what we wanted to do to meet those housing targets was to focus our growth in the town centres, review master planning of West Ryde, undertake feasibility testing, and develop a program to manage growth. We also were asked by the department to increase the supply of medium density dwellings. So I'll just remind you of those two key points there. So this is, now the West Ryde Master Plan is in draft form only. Council must prepare and submit a planning proposal to support the town centre by the end of June 2022. And a master plan will be brought to council early in the term. If we have to lodge something by June, I would imagine council will get to see the master plan in January or February meeting. And the option, I'm presenting you, so it's not finalised. What I'm presenting to you is one of the options that went out to public consultation and one that I believe councillors preferred. So there were two options, one for not much change, and this is the one that was had most support at the time. We'll see what happens in a couple months, but I'll just present you this for now. So sorry about, I don't know if you can see all this, but basically what it's seeking to do. So this here, I don't know if you can see my little thing there, the green on Graph Avenue, we're proposing to go to 10 to 13 stories there as a guide. Then drops down a little bit. I don't know where purple is, but it goes to 6 to 9 stories there, 3 to 5 stories on that site there. The town centres there, you've then got 15 stories, 10 to 13 stories on this side of Ryde Road, right near the train station. That's a big change from what's currently allowable there. I think only about 5 stories is allowable at West Ryde, and the community know, and we know that's not working. Some areas further away, so this is Anzac Park here, some areas further away that's not seeing much change because in terms of height, but here you'll see a little change that'll go 3 to 5. I think it's only sort of 3 at the moment. But the main change is around this town centre. And my understanding, 6 to 9 stories on the other side of Victoria Road. My understanding is this site here is also being included in the report to council, but we'll see what happens there. These upgrades are primarily, or this proposal is primarily to encourage redevelopment in the area, but also ensure that West Ryde remains a viable town centre and is able to provide our community with the facilities that they want down there. They want an upgraded community hub. They want a bigger public plaza down there. They want active laneways that have, restaurants and bars and improved arcades and, a green link and little parks. So this here is a little pocket park that's a potential to do right next to the train station. They want a better bus interchange at the train station, which is very tired at the moment. So they're sick of West Ryde looking very tired, and some of the buildings there have been vacant for years. Some of the blocks are empty. There's the service station on the corner that's just been empty for 10, 15 years. So the community locally are a bit sick of that. They want a town centre that they can walk to. And we've seen a little bit of revitalisation down there, hopefully, but it's stopped. Hopefully, if the council is to resolve to accept this this option, then it'll then be up to the private sector to take up that opportunity and work to it. Very much like the Macquarie Park plan, this will provide a guide for landowners to lodge their planning proposals. I do note, though, that the state government require councils to submit a planning proposal by the June 2022. So we'll see what that looks like. Perhaps council will set the heights, and then it'll be a matter of the landowners to lodge development applications to meet those. Once 12 months, within 12 months of that master plan being approved by the state government, and this is back to that R3 zone, council has to work to implement a delivery plan to identify areas for the R3 zones. Now, we don't know exactly where those are yet, but as we've identified in the local strategic planning statement and this slide earlier, the focus of the growth is in the town centres. So expect the rezoning from R2 to R3 to be proposed for areas surrounding town centres. Again, don't know exactly where that is, but that's something that council staff are required to do under instruction from the state government within 12 months of this master plan being approved. What's the next slide? Oh, here we go. That's it. I just spoke about that. So an R3 zone, very different to an R2 zone. R3 zone allows for manor houses, terraces, and of course, duplexes. And R3 zone, the purpose of the zone is, I'll highlight the most important one, to encourage revitalisation, redevelopment, and housing choice in a residential area. Housing choice for me is something I'm really passionate about. You can't have a whole city with $2 million homes. You need to have a big mix of housing, from an affordable studio to state-owned and council-owned affordable housing, which we release out for subsidised rates, right up to your premium properties as well. So housing choice is incredibly important for a vibrant city, and that's something that I'll always advocate for. So that R3 work will happen once the master plan is approved by the state government. Expect that in the next 12 to 24 months. So once West Ryde's done, we'll start work on that R3, and at the same time, I'm advised that staff are going to move to the Eastwood Town Centre. You'll all know Eastwood pretty well, so expect a very similar process for the Eastwood Town Centre and an Eastwood Master Plan. I expect that the footprint will be both sides of Rose Street, including a lot of the apartments down there that go right up to Terry's Creek, the border there, down in Doomben Avenue, Blaxland Road, Balaclava Road, sort of around those areas. The town centre, it's pretty defined in Eastwood, so yeah, just pull out a map and you can kind of see how big it is. Shaftesbury Road all the way to Blaxland Road, I would imagine. across the train line. So, there's a couple of things that I want to highlight as part of that process. Again, the key driver for this, just like with West Ryde, is not, first thing we need, the key driver for me is to ensure that these town centres remain viable, that they remain vibrant, and that the public infrastructure that's needed to achieve that can be delivered. I know the key driver for the state government is to provide more housing. And I know our community are willing to accept, sometimes communities are pretty opposed to increased housing. But what I found in Ryde, particularly with the West Ryde example, was that people are happy to accept revitalisation as long as they can see the public benefit. So we have to deliver public benefit at the same time as we're delivering the housing. So the first, I mentioned earlier about the Eastwood car park on the Korean side, a big project public project for Eastwood, which will make the town centre much more viable, is Eastwood Central. And I just want to highlight what that is. So the current Eastwood car park is here. That red dot is a big, old, ugly, disgusting, useless, small car park that is just terrible. If you've ever tried to park there, cars come through the middle of the town centre, they clog up the streets. If you enter through here, you can't get up to the top level. You then have to exit, and then you got to go here. You got to come back in. You circle around. Someone probably hits you on the way through. Like, it needs to be replaced. But the problem with this car park is that we can't just knock it down and not have parking for 3 years. So council own all this land here, and basically to the Tzu Chi just there and behind here. That's all council owned land. I think maybe this block isn't and this block isn't. So what the plan for Eastwood Central is, and this has received 75% community support. So council is, through this master plan process, will start the process of delivering this. Is on this site here is to, whilst this one's still operational, is build a new 600 space car park here. I think it's about this big. When that's built, so that's it there. That's that 600 space car park there. That's a concept design. That's the laneway. So that'll be built and be state of the art. There'll be one entrance and exit. Again, EV chargers, automatic entry. You'll be able to access every floor from it. It'll be a modern car park. And then in the space of, once that's built, then we knock down the old shopping centre. We then need to dig. Eastwood floods. I don't know if you know much about flooding in Eastwood, but about once in 100 years, Eastwood floods. So a lot of these businesses down here, and a lot of the landowners down there, can't actually redevelop their land because it's in a floodplain. And it's very hard for them to redevelop the land. If council proceeds with this, and if the community accepts this proposal, before we build new facilities here, what we do is we dig a huge detention basin, which will enable us to close the Eastwood Canal and provide flood mitigation so that this land down here, right on Hillview Road, where the fruit shop is and where a lot of the meat shops and fishmongers and stuff, that land can then be unlocked, which is currently locked up now. So that huge detention basin will fix the flooding issue in Eastwood. It'll enable us to close the dirty, smelly canal, which will then enable this land here to turn around and face the public open space. So once we knock down so this is a new car park. Once we knock down the old car park, we then turn that entire area into open space and a public plaza. With new community facilities in this building, which is on Glen Street. And again, there's the car park here in the background. This all becomes a big open public space, enables us to pedestrianise Eastwood a bit more, again, provide a very livable town centre. This is called Eastwood Service, not Eastwood Service, it's called Eastwood Central. So we're very hopeful that the master plan process identifies that. People have been asking about the Eastwood Centre. They have development approval for their new shopping centre. I think it's 15 stories or 14 stories or something like that, 300 or 400 apartments. The state government approved that, I think 2 years ago, but they haven't started anything yet. So I'm not really sure what's happening there. It's privately owned. So, out of that, again, we get a new Eastwood Plaza, I think $5 million to upgrade Eastwood Plaza, money to upgrade the library, public benefit that I keep on talking about. I like to see public benefit when land is intensified, land use is intensified. There's no point, you can't do one without the other in my book. So we're getting that new public plaza, and we're getting hopefully we're getting affordable housing out of the Eastwood Centre. I think 6 or 8 units, which council will rent out at a cheaper rate for families that need it. So yeah, things like that that we're looking for. So I think that's happening as part of Eastwood. So that master planning process will start, I think, towards the mid to end of next year, where council staff will prepare the documents in consultation with the council laws. It will then go out to public exhibition, and it will then form that very similar process to what happened at West Ryde. So yeah, other options for town centre renewal. I know Cox's Road in North Ryde has been talked about a lot. Melrose Park has been talked about a little bit opposite. Melrose Park is where that huge new development down is in Parramatta. Parramatta is the border. People have mentioned that. But a master plan provides a path for diverse and affordable housing, land rezoning, and infrastructure delivery. Sorry, I've got a spelling issue there. But I'm pretty certain council will start moving on Eastwood. A few councillors committed to that as part of their re-election. And I think, very much like the community in West Ryde, the community in Eastwood are ready for some of these big infrastructure upgrades. And the only way we can do that is by master planning the area and providing certainty for landowners as to what their land can be used for. That's it. I hope that wasn't too long or too short. I'm very open and accessible. I'm on WeChat. This here is a little group that I've got. It's got about 100 people in it. Feel free to join it. Ask any questions about Ryde at any time. People talk about other stuff all the time, sometimes in Mandarin, so I miss most of it. But if you need to ask me a question, you can do that through that group, or you can scan that and just add me individually as well. There's my phone number and there's my email address. And I hope that has been useful.
Thank you very much, Mayor Jerome Lexell. We are currently having 4,069 viewers from live stream on City Media Australia.
Okay.
Thanks very much, all the audience, for supporting our online events.
Merry Christmas.
And next, we will move on to the Q&A section. So the first question will be, after the council re-election, will there be any possibility to have the current DCP change going positive or conservative?
Yes, so I think the DCP change is another work in progress. That is, the planning staff have suggested they're bringing a DCP to council shortly. We made some changes in 2020 we added some heritage conservation areas, and they need to be addressed through a new DCP. So I think the DCP is due to come to council in the next 12 months. So it'll be a draft that'll come to council, and then go out to public exhibition, and your members and locals and everyone will be able to have their say, where we can then make amendments or accept it or listen to what the community says. So that's a very public process, expect that. I don't know an exact date, but I'm expecting that shortly, because you can't do the changes we made to the LEP without updating the DCP. So I've made some pretty big changes to the LEP. We're now sort of waiting for the DCP to catch up. So I would expect that in the next 12 months.
Thank you very much. Next question is quite specific. So the audience wants to know about the main changes for Church Street in Ryde.
Okay. Yep. So it's a public, it's a town centre upgrade. So council has upgraded, I think it's a $3 million budget. Council's upgraded one side of Church Street with the new paving and outdoor dining. It'll be doing the same on the other side. So I don't know if people know Church Street. It's a terrible road. It's very bumpy. The footpath is very damaged. We've got the car park there that's very tight. So it'll be basically resheeting the road, putting public seating, making that sort of town centre more like a town centre, upgrading the footpath, widening the footpath as well, making it a much more attractive place to sort of be in. You know what I mean? It's quite bumpy and stuff at the moment. I think we will be starting to see some development along Church Street. I think recently, I think in the last 3 or 4 years, I think 6 or 7 story apartments were approved on Church Street near St Anne's Church up there. So I think that'll all sort of happen at the same time. But yeah, our upgrade is about a $3 million upgrade of the public domain, very similar to the West Ryde one that we did. And, you know, again, that'll be a very public process, and the money is already allocated, it's budgeted. I think it'll be, it's either next financial year or the year after. I think it's next financial year. Yep.
Thank you very much. Next question is about when you were talking about the housing strategy and you're talking about the 3 kinds of dwellings, and the audience wants to know the percentages of those 3 kinds of dwellings that you were talking about.
The percentages of the dwellings?
Yeah, I just missed the slides there when you were showing. I was going to screenshot it. Can you go back?
Okay. Yeah, I'll go back. Hang on.
Yeah. So it's about the housing strategy.
This one? No, that's West Ryde.
No. Previously. Yeah, that one.
That one.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we consulted with our community, the state government had their medium density housing code set, which allowed Ryde is mainly R2. I think 65% or 70% of Ryde land area is R2. And we were one of the few councils that allowed medium density in R2. So when the state government brought the SEP in, it meant that basically the whole of Ryde was eligible for the 3 housing types in that SEP. That is manor houses, which is like a small, it looks like it's a house, but with 4 apartments in it. You got terraces, which is kind of like, your inner city where it's just a row of houses. And duplexes is the 3rd type as of definition of medium density. Our community overwhelmingly said that they didn't like, in those quiet areas, they didn't like manor houses and terraces, but they were very happy with duplexes. So when we went to the government with our housing strategy, we said, all right, we're going to increase the number of duplexes to balance out the housing delivery. And they said, yes, that's okay, but you need to increase, we'll take medium density out of R2, but you need to do more R3 zones in future. So we now have those set deadlines in the next sort of 12 to 24 months. We have to identify R3 zones, and the council will need to deliver R3 zones across the city to be able to so yeah, we did the duplexes. That's all available in R2 and R3. So now 11,000 lots across the city. And yeah, so these 3 housing choices here, manor houses, terraces, and duplexes can be built in R3. And of course, apartments can be built as well. But there's not many R3 zones in Ryde at the moment. The state government have said you'll need to deliver more R3 zones. And there's timelines to deliver that. So that's that. The percentages, it depends on the market, right? Like, we can only change the zoning, and then, if people don't decide to build it, then that's it. But what's permissible will be now duplexes are permissible a lot more than they used to be. It used to be 20 metre frontage, now it's 15 metre frontage. And we'll have to rezone some areas R3 under instruction from the state government. We do that, we then make more medium density available.
Thank you very much. And next question is, what's Ryde's Council's view on low-rise housing diversity code? Will Council have supportive attitude on manor houses or terrains that to be carried out in R2 low-density residential land under CDC?
So no, our community told us quite prominently that they didn't want that housing in R2. But they're happy for that. And the state government said, okay, we'll take out manor houses and terraces, but you have to create more R3 zones. So our community were very happy with duplexes, which is why we made it very easy to build duplexes through CDC. But the state government approved our request to remove manor and terraces from R2. But you're allowed to build manor and terraces in R3. So council then needs to go through the process of creating more R3 zones on instruction from the state government. So we've got timelines that we have to do that. Within the next 12 months to 24 months, there'll be more R3 zones in the city of Ryde because that's what the state government told us to do. That's what we have to do.
Thank you very much. And next question is, are there any major safe city or smart city projects that are under implementation?
Yep. So Macquarie, we're very excited to have Macquarie Park on our doorstep. We've got a huge smart cities program there. It's the home of medical technology, biotech. So we've partnered with the federal government to install some sensors along there to track pedestrian movement and to ensure that our infrastructure delivery is great. We invest in local organisations like Venture Cafe, which brings people together, especially innovators. We're looking at a co-working hub at our Ryde Central project. To provide that ecosystem for innovators. And yeah, we want to be, a smart city. Thankfully, we've got the university there, we've got a hospital there, we've got a, train station, we've got housing there, we've got all the key elements. And a smart city project is ongoing at Macquarie Park in particular. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Next question is asked when you're talking about the West Ryde Master Plan. The audience asked about how is the council arranging the fundings to run those projects?
So the funding to arrange the master plan, or you mean to fund the infrastructure delivery?
Yeah, like around West Ryde, yeah.
So a lot of the infrastructure funding comes through, your statutory developer contributions, the 7-Eleven contributions. So the master plan, what that does is enables us to budget for those that increased infrastructure. Some developers then on top of that approach council for a voluntary planning agreement, and that's something that council explores. But the main funding will come from developer contributions to fund those infrastructure upgrades. They're statutory, and there's a very transparent formula out there. So that's how they're funded. We also have a pretty vast reserve of 7-Eleven contributions. I think at last check it was at $90 million that we've got. So we're drawing down on that to build Ryde Central, but we also may use some of that reserve to complement some of the infrastructure upgrades at West Ryde and Eastwood. These are big projects. They cost money, but what they do is they make our cities livable, and it attracts more investment in our area and makes our area a better place to live. So, yep.
Thank you very much. Next question is about the dual occupancy frontage. The audience wants to know, in the future, LEP, will it be amended?
So it was only amended this year. So I don't know, amended to what, like higher, lower? I think.
I'm not sure, but
yeah.
but he or she think that he missed like the part that you were talking about this, so he wants to ask more about this topic.
Yeah. So I think the only wiggle room that we've got, 15 meters is pretty narrow for a dual occupancy. It's basically a garage and then an entrance and then another garage and another entrance. So I think the only wiggle room that council has is to reduce the minimum lot size, which is currently 580 square meters. If council were to amend it, it's not on the radar. So answering the question, I don't think it'll happen soon because we've only just changed it. And we've almost tripled the amount of availability. So that's why you're seeing a lot of I think that's unfortunately contributed to a housing bubble here in Ryde, has been the fact that people can buy a house and turn it into two, and that's pushed up housing prices temporarily. But what we're able to do is then provide an extra home for someone to buy a bit more affordably. So look, I think there's still a lot of opportunity for that to be developed. So I don't think in the near future we'll be changing that. There's a lot of blocks of land that are eligible for a duplex that haven't been touched yet. So I don't think we'd change that until we sort of reach that maximum. And that's if we'd have to. A lot of these changes we do to meet housing targets. If we're meeting our housing targets, then the pressure to change them are pretty low. Increasing from 4,000 to 12,000, 11,000 lots was a big increase. So let's just see how that goes, and then we'll revisit it if we have to. But yeah, I wouldn't think there'd be a big appetite to change that again.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're just running a little over time, so can I just ask one last question?
Sure.
It's about the R3 zone and R4 zone. They want to know about what's the key points to become R3 zone, and can you talk about R4 zoning plans in the future as well?
So the key for R3 zone, I'll go back to where is it? So we look for areas. I mean, as you go back to my slide back on the housing strategy, was our growth is around town centres. So the first thing that we're looking for, and the staff will be looking for, are areas that are currently R2 that are near town centres, right? Because that's where we want the most of our growth. That currently R2. So off the top of my head, you look at there's a lot of R2 around Eastwood. There's some R2 around West Ryde. There's some R2 around Gladesville. There's some R2 around Cox's Road, North Ryde. These little town centres. Some are little, some are big. So it'd be looking for those areas that are close to town centres. You then would also look for areas that are close to public transport. You increase density. You want to reduce the amount of cars. Next to really important public services, so trains, buses, schools, shops, so people don't have to rely on their car. If you're cramming more homes in, you need to make sure that you don't clog the roads as well. And areas that need revitalisation. That's the whole point of R3. This little yellow box here is the definition. You only change something to R3 to encourage revitalisation and housing choice. So if you choose a pocket in the middle of nowhere that won't, you need to find a pocket of land that's currently R1 or R2, and look at, consulting with the community and changing it to R3. I guess what makes it weird for us here is that Ryde Council, no matter who's in charge, has to rezone some land R3. That was a very clear instruction from the state government as part of our housing strategy. This is a public document. It's on there. Within 12 months of the approval of the West Ryde Master Plan, council has to identify where it's going to put the R3 and start the process of rezoning. So within the next 2 to 3 years, land will be rezoned from R2 to R3 around town centres in the city of Ryde. Which areas we're going to start with, not sure. I would imagine it would be around West Ryde, but again, council hasn't seen that document yet. I'm just speculating here, but that's something that we have to do in the next term, is start the process to rezone some areas to R3.
Thank you very much. We still have some new questions, but we're running out of time. So I just suggest to all of our audience, you can add the WeChat that Mayor provided us, and then can go over those questions later with him.